does a little bit of everything. He's my friend, Charlie HODGE.
Well, good day, my friends. It's your old pal, Jordan the Lion. How are you all doing today? I hope you said great. Today we're coming to you from just outside of Decatur, Alabama. And today we're going to pay our respects to, some might say, Elvis's best friend. Daze with Jordan the Lion. And you all, it begins right now. Yep, this is a man that some say, other than Elvis, he was the most important man on stage during all those Elvis performances. He helped Elvis be ready for anything that he was going to do. He was the man that put the scarf around Elvis's neck. He's the one that caught the guitar whenever Elvis would throw it over his head. Let's go visit Charlie HODGE. Luckily, it's not a huge cemetery. I'm not sure exactly where he is located, but I have seen a photo of his headstone. Actually, I just see a HODGE now. I think maybe that's him. Kind of back here towards the back of the cemetery. You can see on the other side of what we just saw, Charlie has a military headstone right there. And his headstone with his significant other, I believe. Charles Franklin HODGE. December 14th, 1934 to March 3rd, 2006. When God calls you home, don't be late, it says at the bottom. And of course, the TCB, taking care of business with Elvis. Here's his headstone for serving in the military. Now, that's how he actually became good friends with Elvis. Though he met him before that. He was in a vocal group called the Foggy River Boys, and they briefly met backstage, and then they both ended up getting or having to go into the military. So that's where they met. They met at Fort Hood, or that's where they became friends. And then when they were getting sent overseas, apparently Elvis would always get asked for autographs and everything. So they put him with the sergeants, and since he didn't know anybody, he asked if Charlie could come and stay there as well so he'd have a friend, and that's basically how they bonded. So Charlie said when they were in Fort Hood, they'd become friends, but when Elvis's mom died and he left and came back, he could tell that during the day Elvis was fine when they were doing, you know, routines and things like that they always did, but at night he could hear him in the bunk above him breathing heavy and sighing and stuff. So he would entertain him. He would start, you know, singing things and telling him jokes and stuff to get his mind off of it until Elvis would tire out and go to sleep. So when they went overseas, they would even take their time off together. Elvis would decide, oh, I want to go to Germany and I want to go to Paris, so he would tell Charlie to request it off, and they would take off, and they would go to Paris for 7 days. And he told a story about how they were told, oh, you're safe here, nobody in Paris will care about you being a celebrity. And then as soon as they walked down the Champs-Elysees, people were going crazy, so they dove in this theater and stayed in there till it all like died out, and then went across the street and got a hotel, and then called the theater and said, hey, can all the chorus girls come over and party with us? And so all the girls came over, and Charlie said the next day the theater called and said, hey, can the girls come back over? We need to start the show, because they had never went home. So when they were discharged from the Army, Elvis was concerned that he would have lost his, his mojo. And so, one of Charlie's jobs when Elvis came out, he hired all of his buddies because he wanted people that were either friends or family to be around him all the time. He loved big groups. So Charlie's job was to help Elvis get prepared to go perform again. And then he started doing the movies. So it was his job to kind of help Elvis with those songs. He would actually be in a lot of the movies with Elvis. He had a lot of really funny stories about filming all those movies, but he said after a couple of years, he was getting bored with it. And he just asked Elvis if he minded if he went back out and started performing again and started doing Vegas and Tahoe and stuff like that. And then he said, then he got too busy and said, Elvis, can I come back? I want to do nothing again. So not nothing, but he wanted to go just kind of hang around the movie sets, be in the movies and do those things. So that's what he did, came back and did all that. But then when they decided that Elvis was going to do the comeback special, Charlie was the person who had to help get Elvis ready for that. See, Charlie HODGE was not only a best friend, he was like a brother. So when all the guys, Elvis would always... One thing about Charlie, he always had a room wherever Elvis lived. Every house, whether it was Palm Springs or Graceland, he always had his own room. He said when he first moved in, he had a room upstairs next to Elvis's, but Elvis's wardrobe collection grew so big that he needed to build a closet, so he took over Charlie's room for the closet. So then Charlie moved downstairs in the room next to the room with the 3 TVs, and he said he was there for a while, and then finally Elvis moved him to the apartment above the garage, which he said he loved because he said had a huge living room, a huge bedroom, and his own private entrance so he could have his own friends come over without having to have them go through Graceland or anything like that. But he basically dedicated his whole life to Elvis. So he was always helping Elvis prepare when, like I said, when they were going to do the comeback special, all the guys would hang out all day. Then at like 1:30, the Memphis Mafia guys would go to bed, and Elvis and Charlie would stay up till like 8 in the morning going over songs, getting Elvis's voice back into it. He said, then when they wanted to take the show to Vegas, he said that also became part of his job, where he became basically the show manager. He would get Elvis ready and they would time out the songs. And by the time they were ready to perform, Elvis knew like 500 songs. So every night, Charlie's job was to create the show, create the set list, run it past Elvis. If there was anything they wanted to change, they would change it. During the show, if there was anything they wanted to change, they could change it. And Charlie said he had a lot of jobs during the show. I mean, one was he would co-play acoustic guitar. He would co-sing. He would be the man to put the scarf on Elvis. He would catch the guitar. But he said one of his big jobs also was that Elvis would get exhausted after some songs and just be completely out of breath. So he said it was his job to hold the high notes in case Elvis didn't want to that night. Or if Elvis lost his place in a story or something like that, or starting a song, he would jump in and help start that as well. And like I said, Charlie lived at Graceland and was like a member of the family, so much so that when Priscilla would have, the dinner every night, she would tell them they were all invited, all the guys, including Charlie, provided that they didn't request something different. Whatever was being served was what they had to have, but they were treated like family all year round. In fact, Charlie said he remembered one time where, every Christmas he would tell Elvis, hey, I want to go away for Christmas. Well, he said after a couple of years, Elvis goes, come on now, Charlie, you've done this several years now. This is getting to be enough. And Charlie goes, Elvis, I want to see my parents. He said it didn't even dawn on him, because he was so used to having him around that, Charlie would want to see his own parents. Charlie was always kind of the fun guy. He kind of made sure Elvis was always having fun, always happy. One of the closest in the circle, when they were planning out the wedding and the colonel kept everything private, only Charlie and Joe Esposito really were in the know of what was going on. Charlie was there all the way to the end, when a lot of guys had families and kids and wives and all that stuff, and later on in the years they weren't hanging around as much, Charlie and Billy Smith and Joe Esposito would still be around. And he said that he didn't reveal until he put out his book about his life with Elvis that he was told at the end of Elvis's life by Dr. Nick, along with Vernon Presley, they said, Charlie, you don't tell anybody this. This stays here. He said, okay. He said, Elvis has bone cancer and it's spread all over his body. It's too late for us to do anything. So Charlie knew that Elvis, wasn't probably long for this world, because when they did the autopsy, they found out that he, much like his mother, had bad kidneys, also had high blood pressure. He had suffered 3 heart attacks and never knew it. So Charlie was with him all the way to the end. Ginger even talks about the day that Elvis proposed to her, that Charlie was the first one to congratulate her and give her like a little gift, like a little backgammon board, like a little travel board type thing. He was beloved. It's kind of surprising that he's not at Graceland. I mean, if there's anybody that belongs there, it's definitely Charlie Hodge. Charlie really kept the train rolling all the time. He said it was sad. He remembered having a conversation with Elvis at the end of his life, and he said, Charlie, wouldn't it be great for us to go do some shows over in Munich and Paris and go back to where we were when we were in the military? And Charlie said, yeah, that'd be great. And Elvis said, I want to go back while they still recognize me looking the way they expect me to look. Charlie even said when he would talk to Elvis, Elvis would be stretching out his hands or stretching his feet, or just kind of moving him around. He said it kind of made sense because he would tell him, my body hurts all over and I don't know why. So when he found out about the bone cancer, he said, I understood then why he was in so much physical pain all the time. J.D. Sumner, who was one of Elvis's biggest inspirations as a young man, J.D. would tell stories of Elvis coming backstage and asking him when he was 14 years old how he could break into the music business. J.D. said that if there was ever a best friend that Elvis had, it was Charlie Hodge. And if there was anyone more important than Charlie Hodge to an Elvis show, it was only Elvis. I think that says an awful lot. One of my favorite things about Charlie was that he knew so many songs. And so if Elvis would just decide one day, hey, I want to do this song, and the rest of the band didn't know it. I remember one time Charlie told a story about Elvis wanting to do How Great Thou Art, and Charlie said, I'm the only one that knows that song. And Elvis said, well, then you play it on piano because I'm doing it tonight. And Charlie did it. Well, my friends, we're going to call it a day. Thank you, Charlie Hodge, everything you did for Elvis. You definitely took care of business, man. Rest in peace. Have a great night, everyone, and goodbye.